Yes, we have many splitties in the program. The public safety building is all.
Yeah. Would you like to?
And water.
And water. Right, it will be 12 or something.
12 or something.
Yeah.
Brainstorming 11. Sure, there. So were you thinking of moving it there? You want to do that now?
Or here.
Oh, that's right.
No,
Okay, that's good.
see it. We can all see it.
Carolyn.
Yeah.
You'll have to do other stuff. And here's the others nicely provided by Miranda.
I think everyone is in that was in the waiting room. Whenever you're ready.
I'm joining now.
And I get this.
I have to. These are the two warrants. Ready?
Under the page.
I'll turn it off to 0. Don't get.
Okay.
So,
And do you want to start?
Recording in progress.
And when are we starting? 6:34. And this is a regular meeting of the Norwich Select Board, Wednesday, March 12th, 2025. I'm Mary Levy, Select Board Chair. My Select Board Vice Chair is traveling back to come into you. I'm doing some brainstorming, so he's getting the chart. Kimo Riggs, Vice Chair, Priscilla Vincent, Matt Sweat, Marcia Callaway, and Town Manager Brennan Duffy. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda and the March 5th minutes. I was able to submit them so they can be approve tonight if you all agree. Other than that, are there any other suggested changes? Yes, Martha?
Well, I have a question. Mary, what do you want the board to approve you to do every week that you'll report on?
Hang on just a minute. There's some
Okay.
here. Could you say again?
Sure. I'm just wondering what you want to do every week, what you want the board to approve you to do every week that you're going to report on.
In the chair's report?
Yeah.
Perhaps we should get to the chair's report before we discuss that.
Okay, I just wondered if we wanted it on the agenda at all. It's just because, you know, I brought this up before, that the Vermont chair doesn't have any authority for anything other than running the meeting. And so, you know, maybe what we want to do is, if we want to know what somebody is talking about, we assume you're talking to the town manager, but maybe everybody, we want to call it board comments or something, and use it as a platform to maybe say, that thing has been brought up to me in the community by a variety of people, and so maybe we want to consider that in the future for an agenda item.
Okay, I guess since we're discussing this, I think my purpose in having the chair's report, it's mostly going to be, I think that I met about, you know, putting the agenda together. And also that I have a slightly different style since I have to work. So one of the things I was going to mention is I'll be relying more on the town manager's office to actually produce the agenda and approve the motions. So I sort of need a little support there of just understanding. I'm not going to really use it to try to direct the board. And I might have information related by the town manager that he may or may not have in his town manager report. So I might want to just, and I think they would pertain to whether or not the board wants to take up an item. For instance, one of the pieces of information this time was that the animal ordinance that we've been waiting for is sort of right. But I don't think we, on this agenda, we had a chance to all know that. So I'm intending to keep it very short. I'm also intending to keep it unless I get kicked off of it. Okay, so that's really my intention with it.
Well,
We could always eliminate it if people find it annoying or takes up too much of a meeting or unnecessary. Okay.
I mean, I think we all anticipate that you're going to be doing those kinds of things, but I'd feel more comfortable just meeting the spirit and the intent of the law. If we need a motion to say, you know, we authorize the chair to make a report every week. Because I've been, as you know, voting against the agenda based on item 2. And so I can keep doing that, but I would happily say, okay, if we just made a motion.
I would like to move that we permit the chair to give a chair's report
Okay.
during each select board meeting.
All right. Is there a
I'll second that.
Say,
A number.
It doesn't matter which one of us. We don't know.
I think it might have been Priscilla.
And I worded that so it's not a requirement, it is allowed.
Okay, so move to permit the chair. How did you put it? Can you get that, Jenny? Could you repeat that, please? Move to permit the chair to give a report.
Move to allow the chair to give a chair report during each select board.
Okay, so now we get to the vote. I guess I'll do a roll call just so I don't leave anybody out. So Marcia, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, and Matt,
Yep. Yes.
Priscilla,
Yes.
and Kimo?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm a yes, so thank you very much, and I'll try to keep it brief. Okay. Oh, and you know what? That wasn't actually the first thing on our agenda, so we're a little out of order with that.
I make a motion for adding the March 5th minutes.
let's get back to our first agenda item. So whoever moves this motion could include the March 5th minutes. Would you like to move the motion, Marcia?
Yes.
Okay.
I move to approve the agenda as amended to include the approval of the March 5th, 2025 minutes.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it, but if I could make a comment, I think it would just be to include the March 5 minutes, because this makes it sound like a automatic approval.
Oh, well, that's true.
So I'll take that friendly amendment
As amended to include,
as amended to include the March 5th, 2025 minutes.
Okay. Did you get that, Jenny? Okay. Let's vote on that. So, Marcia
Do we have a second?
yeah, I seconded, yeah.
Yes.
and Matt
Yes.
and Priscilla
Yes,
and Kimo,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay, thank you very much. Chair's report. I met to set the agenda. It was a tight deadline and missed the back and forth. We usually send the draft agenda out for people to look at so they can decide whether they really don't want something or really do want something. And I apologize because I missed that. And some of it's just establishing a good way to communicate with the town manager's office while I'm supervising children, which is mostly on my phone. Okay, so we can do it, but it's interesting. So we'll do it, and I'll try to make it more smooth of how it goes back and forth. Let's see, and this might be more. I don't think we had a motion about future agendas, but just quickly, committee positions have been advertised. Animal ordinance draft is ready. Thank you, Jenny Tolman, for being our new minutes taker. There's an update on the FEMA obligated funds, which maybe when we get down to the FEMA related events, the town managers can explain that. I took a cursory look at the Vermont 250th information, which might come out in our brainstorming as something you want to think about. I printed out, there was so much confusion at the last meeting. I printed out and reviewed all the open meeting law statutes, and I actually have them in the back because I wanted to be clear. We can talk about that when it's the time to talk about our procedures. Spoke with John Carroll about open meeting law practice from his perspective and from in contacting the Secretary of State, actually. And then Kimo very kindly offered to try to organize our flip chart. I asked him to do that. And I thought about when we get to the brainstorming, just different buckets if we want to have categories for what we're thinking about. So that's it. I don't expect it to be that long next time. Any questions or comments?
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so now it's time for public comments that are not on the agenda. Any public comments? If we're not on the agenda, okay, so that's none. So now we get to our rules of procedure. And I'm thinking we could go through section by section. I'm hoping it'll go pretty smoothly. There might be a couple of things we want to tweak, talk about. Does everybody have a copy or have it on their computer? Yeah? Okay, yes, you want to share it?
I wanted to move that we adopt the rules of procedure as written, and it's on the website today. So that there's no pressure to adopt or change anything. We have rules, and during this discussion, if we decide we need more time or don't need more time, we can put those rules in. But at least we've established, we have rules, we've adopted rules.
Oh, I see. One way or the other, too.
Yeah, I don't think it affects anything
Okay.
that comes after, but
Well, definitely we need some rules of procedure. We had a set that worked last year. We can look these over. because we do have, some input from Marcia. I do think we had correct changes that Marcia provided, and I believe this part, if I'm right, Marcia, this part's what we have from last year, correct?
Losing my voice, sorry. The yellow is what I have changed or added,
Okay,
and then I did this long document,
yes.
basically
It's
footnotes.
sort of annotated.
Right.
All right, so we might take a quick look. If we are feeling skittish about changes, we can adopt what we presented, which would be the unhighlighted part. That would be what you're talking about, Kimo.
Yes.
We know what that is. So,
I'm moving we adopt that before we continue.
before to not have discussion.
And then have discussion about this to follow and then adopt.
Okay, so you've actually made a motion then?
Yeah.
Okay. So Kimo's made a motion. Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, can you hear it again exactly? Move to adopt this Selectboard rules of procedure.
As they exist on our town website today.
As they exist.
They have a date.
It was from March 13, 2024.
March 13th, 2024. Okay. So motion was to move to adopt the select board rules of procedure as they exist on the town website. As they exist on the town website today. Okay, we have to have the 3/13/24 is the date of the actual rules of procedure.
Okay.
So
We can just state the date of.
we
those
could just
rules.
switch the date, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You want to move that again? Sorry, this is picky. This is good. though.
Yeah. I move to adopt the March 13th, 2024 Select Board Rules of Procedure as presented.
Oh, as they
As
exist.
they exist on the town website today.
Okay. And that was it, right?
That was it.
Okay, is there a second?
Yeah.
Okay, so Priscilla's second. Shall we have discussion, Marcia?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it's a necessary motion because they don't have an expiration date. So I don't know why they're not still in effect until we adopt new ones.
Well, Kimo, sorry.
The statute states that we are required to adopt rules every year.
I know,
So we haven't adopted them this year.
we're still in the year.
Okay.
No, you're not.
I'm sorry, who's that? Who's this person? I'm sorry, I just couldn't.
That was Cheryl Lindbergh, but I don't think she.
Oh, okay. All right. Any other discussion? I'd be happy to go with our existing rules of procedure. That's just my own opinion as like the fifth select board member. But I want to make sure that there's no more discussion about it. We're good? Oh, Matt?
To me, it seems like a safety net, because this might be a long discussion. And
Okay,
we might have lots of, we might have different back and forth, some edits. So at least we will have done our duty and adopted something. when we
okay,
leave this.
all right. Are we ready to vote? Oh, any public comment? No? From Zoom? I don't see any hands. All right, well, let us vote. Marcia, how do you vote?
Yes, no harm done.
Okay. Matt,
Yes.
Select,
Yes.
Emo,
Yes.
yes, well, that's very good. Thank you all. And that speeds up our meeting by a lot, I suspect. The next item is the Hemlock Road Slope Stabilization and Culvert bid recommendation. I'd like to ask our town manager to.
Sure. Just to be clear, so there's no discussion about the amended or proposed.
The rules of procedures
tonight?
Should we take, it's a miracle.
I don't necessarily want to go back into that,
No,
but
it's what we had last year. It's the
Yeah.
March 13th, 2024 version that's on the website. So I don't think you have to do anything.
well, we do, because I think we have a circulation for signatures
Oh, that's true.
of the minutes or of the
Mhm.
procedures being adopted and the correspondence being adopted. And those were circulated at the last meeting, I believe.
Oh, so you're saying they're in this folder?
They're not in that folder. No, I think I could find them upstairs though, if we're.
So would it make sense to draw up the new version and have us stop by the town offices to sign it?
If that's convenient for folks.
Once you have a copy up there.
Well, like I said, before the end of the meeting, I will look upstairs,
Okay.
because I know we had one at the last meeting. I just didn't bring that folder with.
Okay, Marcia?
Would anybody have a problem with just redacting the statutory sites since there's been an update in the open meeting law?
I don't know.
It's just
You're
that,
talking about adding this.
I'm talking about where it says public information and access to public records. Since there've been some minor tweaks of sections, renumbering and stuff. It seems like it's not appropriate to include it at all. If it's wrong, I'd rather personally that it was out.
Okay, so what's a graceful way to deal with that? We could have a new motion saying to edit. Or should we keep it frozen as it was last year? Or should we have a look, can we have a line on the website that says check for changes in the statute? I don't know how that will look on the website. I don't know if that's technically feasible. But
Did we just,
we're done with that, but
so we're discussing the rules, not the,
Brennan asked a question.
Well, I'm sorry, maybe I shouldn't have.
No,
We are, before we moved on from item 4 to item 5, I just wanted to clarify for myself what the process was, because I was anticipating we were going to readopt the existing rules and procedures, but then there was going to be a discussion about the amended proposals tonight. But if that's something for another meeting down the road, that's fine with me as well.
well, we could just consider that. We could circle back to it if we have an appetite to make it completely correct. I think what Marcia's talking about are just in the very first section, the citations to statute. Some of that has changed a little bit. So if you're comfortable waiting,
well,
Marcia?
you could put a line through it and say, check statutes, and we could all initial it.
I mean, when we sign it, but this doesn't sound very, no, I don't think that sounds very good. I think we should, I think personally, since Kimo's motion said just freeze what's on the website, that we should just keep it the way it is and sign it either tonight or if we can get into the office and just, that'll be it for now for procedures. And some of the procedures for new people will just become a little more second nature, like the things that we usually do. Like if someone's on Zoom, for instance, there has to be roll call, little things like that. They'll just, a lot of it just sort of comes with a little bit of experience too. So, yes.
so my intention was just to assure everyone that we have rules in place, not to stop discussion about proposals and changes in the future, which we could do tonight or next time or
I think
any
that's,
time in the future.
well, I think that ship has sailed.
Okay.
Yeah, but we could circle back if we don't get too busy.
Okay.
But we have a framework I think it's basic, it'll work well, we can circle back. So, all right, so, does that sound okay?
That's fine with me. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So now it's number 5, Hemlock Road Slope Stabilization and Culvert bid recommendation.
Yeah. So I think we have Chris Kaufman, our DPW director, on, and I think he will be able to speak more to this if there are questions. I did think it made sense before we get into the next 3 agenda items, which are all requesting authority to move forward with the FEMA projects and spend significant amount of money in doing so that will be reimbursed by the FEMA grant process. There's been some discussion in prior meetings and on the listserv about the current instability, I guess, in Washington, D.C. with the new administration and what that could mean as far as risk to the towns throughout Vermont, probably throughout the country that are relying on this obligation of FEMA funding. So we have, I think, done everything we can at this point to assure that these obligated funds are indeed obligated to the town of Norwich for the amounts that we're going to be talking about here. And again, there was never any belief that these were ever going to be in our coffers. This is all going to be a reimbursed grant. So as we expend funds, we then have a process where we will go through the state of Vermont, which will be managing the FEMA funds, and we will be reimbursed for those expenses. And that is going to be a process that will take some time for each invoice. We had thoughtfully moved $1 million out of kind of obligated CDs so that funding will be liquid when we get to the point where we need to be paying invoices and then seeking the reimbursement. So we have, again, reached out to the state, who will actually be the source that we will be drawing the funds from. Chris Kaufman will be having a transfer meeting that was supposed to happen today, but it got delayed until next week, which will be between FEMA, the state of Vermont, and Chris representing the town of Norwich, in which we will sort out all of the monies and how this will work as it goes, again, via the state to the town. So that is something that's going to happen again by next week. We did, again, seek some assurances, and I just want to read directly from our state representative. This is state representative of the FEMA, not a state rep, sorry. Yeah, that was bad wording. We have a representative, several in the state of Vermont in the A&R that are handling this disbursement of the funds. And we've been working with them for 18 months now at this point. So this is a gentleman named Jim Tonkovich. As for FEMA funding, Chris, obligated projects are in no danger of deleted or reduced funding, and reimbursements will take place along normal timelines. So that is, again, coming from the funding source that we will be drawing from. I think there's a firm assurance there that obligated funds are not going to be deleted or rescinded at some point in the future. So with that said, unless there are questions, and again, Chris has been dealing with this directly, so he might be able to provide more detail if needed. But I think that's what we can tell the board and the community today, is we feel comfortable that we need to proceed on the path that we've been on for the last 18 months to begin these major projects.
All right, thanks for that update. Are there any questions about that aspect, Matt? Do you have a question?
I was just wondering if, because Kimo and I are new to this, and even though we might have been following it outside of Selectboard things, if we could just get a 5 or 10 minute summary or 5-minute summary on just from the beginning of this to where we are now.
Like would that be each of the projects? I think they're projects.
Well, really, it seems like they're lumped together. So like the Hemlock Road Slope project, and then the culvert replacement.
Culverts,
Just to let us know how we got to this point, so that if I missed a packet or something like that,
I might actually ask Chris if you're willing. Would you like to just kind of provide the summary of kind of the project and how it's unfolded? Obviously, this all began back in July of 2023, and we had a FEMA disaster event in the town of Norwich. So queuing that up, Chris, do you want to take that on?
Yeah, we had a storm event in July of 2023. It affected a number of culverts throughout the town and roads and the area over on Hemlock Road, which was the slope that had significant problems with stability issues. Of all those projects, the smaller projects were handled in-house in terms of response, repair, and those projects of a smaller scale were submitted for reimbursement, and those have been reimbursed. The two larger projects, the three culverts, those were combined, the one on Kate Wallace Road, the one on Illsley Road, which is a class 4 road, and the Norford Lake Road. Those three culverts were combined into one project by FEMA, so they could basically turn it into $1 million project. So we would have a little more flexibility in how we approach the projects, and it would be a less of an administrative burden for both the town and FEMA. And so in terms of the Hemlock Road, that project was, like you said, unto itself, and that project evolved due to some obvious serious slope displacements that occurred. We subsequently hired a consulting firm, and we've used those consulting firms to help evaluate the slopes. They went out there, they did some initial readings, they did some evaluations, they wrote several reports, geotechnical reports, they recommended various options. Those were presented to the board, and we decided to move ahead doing the soil nailing effort to address the slope, which would be the least intrusive, keep us out of the water, so we don't have to deal with any Corps of Engineer permit on that project. And that project was scoped out, as Brennan said, a little over $1 million to do this work. So those two projects, the Hemlock Road, currently we have interim slope monitoring, and the reason we have the slope monitoring is basically to ensure that there is no imminent failure for the residents that are currently using slope. It's not being used to determine whether or not there's a concern out there, because that has already been stated and discussed, and that has been agreed to by FEMA. The slope monitoring was just to ensure that there would be no imminent failure and there would be no concerns to the residents or emergency vehicles or other types of equipment that use the road in the interim. So we are now in a position where we have finished all the engineering for both projects. On the culvert projects, we've gotten all the easement deeds, both temporary and permanent. We've secured the Corps of Engineer permits for the culvert projects. And there, as I said, there were no Corps permits needed for the Hemlock Road. There was an internal zoning permit that is going to be wrapped up on Friday, and that's internal to our planning department. So there's no real issue there. At this point, we've gone out to bid for both projects, both for construction and construction inspection. As I said, the engineering's been completed. We used Stantec engineers for the Hemlock Road, and we used Everett Hammond out of Hammond Engineering for the culvert projects. So we've received bids for both projects. And like I said, we're in the procurement process, and we have had a bid analysis completed for both. We have a responsive and a low bid for each, and we've made a recommendation today to move forward. Some of the challenges here are that in regards to the culvert projects, we have a very short deadline due to all the FEMA work going on through the state and the area. Precast concrete plants are really booked up, so it's imperative that we move quick, because right now we're probably not going to see a precast structure to the site until late July, maybe even into August. So the idea is to move. We've got insurances, like Brennan said, from Jim Takovich, who said that we're going to get the funding. It's not a problem. FEMA's concurred with this. So there is no risk here. So that's where we're at. And that's what I wanted to present to the board today to get approval to move forward for each of these contracts. Is that
Thank you.
correct, Matt?
Thank you. That's a very,
Okay.
very
Yes.
comprehensive, comprehensive account. Sounds very well organized, but yes, Ben?
I just wanted to kind of publicly thank Chris for all of the work that has gone into this over the last 18 months. And I'm thinking we must have hundreds of hours in this with his management of getting us just to this point where we're signing contracts for the construction to occur. He's going to be very busy all summer, as well as the resident engineers kind of administering and managing on-site stuff as well. But I just wanted to take the opportunity just to acknowledge all of the effort that has gone into getting us even to where we are here in March.
That's a good point. Thank you, Brendan. Thank you, Chris. Let's see if there's any questions for Chris. Any further questions? Kimo?
I just have one or two, I think. Projects of this nature there are some approximations made. I'm wondering what chance there is that these will go over budget, or are there ways to bring them in under budget, or are they just a fixed price? We're going to get what we asked for, and it's done.
I'll let Chris take that. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, these are unit price contracts. So these have to be set up to VTrans standards. So everything was set up in terms of bidding for using VTrans standards, the current 2024 standards. And that's how they were bid. We believe we have a pretty tight, comprehensive project. Of course, there may be unknowns out there, but generally, I think the engineering was pretty solid and the estimates came out really tight with what the bids came back as. So I feel as though that we got really decent bids back, and we're going to have a construction inspector on site, and his job is to ensure that not only do they keep accurate records, but also that if issues come up, we can collectively get together and find solutions that are, affordable, meet the pricing in the contract, and deal with any changes. There might be some minor changes here and there as contracts go, but our job is to keep those minimal. So, and of course, FEMA, as I've mentioned, we're only covering 2.2% right now of the contract price. And once I get, I also have, from all my efforts, I have up to $122,000 worth of administrative Cat Z reimbursement that will maybe not reach that level, but all my time will be put in at the end of the project. So what that means is that the town would likely not be out really any monies at this point. So.
Thanks.
Matt, did you have a
Yeah.
question?
First, I wanted to thank you that your summary on the spot was answered a lot of my questions that I was going to ask. And so I appreciate that. Just because it's our duty to do this diligence, I was wondering, is the reimbursement from the state that we get, is it a staged reimbursement? And will we be kind of getting money reimbursed as we spend it, or is it the kind of thing where we'd have to wait till the end of the project and then get the full amount?
Well, actually, we've been obligated for both projects. So once I finish the RTM meeting, the transfer meeting is going to be next week, and once I understand the terms and understand the reimbursement process, then I can start taking all the invoices we've actually paid to date and start putting those in for reimbursement. So the money's going to start flowing right away. As I get invoices, and I already have invoices from the engineering aspects that I keep files on. So I'm ready to actually submit those anytime as soon as I get the go ahead from the state. So we'll start seeing some money coming in for that. And that's all been, I've been working with Barry to make sure that's all identified as FEMA reimbursement invoices. So we're keeping a tight track of all expenses. And going forward, we'll be doing the same thing. So as we get the invoices, I'll be turning them into the state and then they'll be turning them around. I believe that we've been told, the turnaround's probably like 30 to 45 days, but I should know better next week once I meet with everyone and get a better understanding of the details.
And then one,
Is there a
I have a
follow-up?
follow-up.
Marcia. Go ahead. Yeah.
And then in a, I hate to put it out there, but like in a worst case scenario where FEMA decides not to pay obligated funds, and I understand, I feel assured that they will, is that would the state still pay us reimbursement and then have the attorney general or whoever in the state would sort of chase that money from FEMA, or would it be on our dime to kind of chase down any money we wouldn't be able to get?
So Brennan would like
So
to.
that, I will
Yeah.
answer that is so speculative that I don't think there's an answer tonight.
I think at least from my understanding is the money is transferred to the state and the state manages the money. So once the funds are obligated, I should, like I said, find out next week, but I believe the money is then transferred to the state and then it's the state's responsibility to make sure that everything's done and they handle everything. So I believe there is a transfer between the state and the feds, if that hasn't happened already.
Brendan, did you want to add to that or?
No, just that again, I don't think we can't speculate on exactly what would happen in an unlikely but disastrous situation where like FEMA was abolished or something. We would be in the same position as many, many other Vermont and national municipalities. So it would be a disaster.
Okay, Marcia, did you have a question or comment?
I'll just make a quick comment that if FEMA is abolished, we've got bigger troubles, but just this. So again, Chris, thank you so much. That's great work. And I know it's been just consuming your life. Am I right to assume, I'm sure I am, but I never like to assume that the Northwoods excavating bid accurately reflects the corrected math? Because I noticed there was some math errors.
Yeah, there was some
Noted.
minor edits, errors that happens occasionally. But that's what the bid tabulation is for. So Everett went through that and he corrected the bid. And what's I have listed here are the correct numbers that will be used going forward. There were some minor math errors, but they weren't too significant. And those have been adjusted and contractors informed of the corrected bid tabulation.
Thank you. I thought so.
Yep.
Other questions? Okay, I have a question just on the configuration of the culverts. As I noticed with Tiger Town, with 132, they seem to be configured to allow more water through and also wider. Is that true of these culverts as well? Or?
Yes, they've been designed, and we had the state come out, and the state actually did the actual recommendations for the design size for those. So that was done in cooperation with the river management engineer and VTrans. And that was developed through a hydrology study that they did, and that was presented to FEMA, and that's how we got the size of the culvert that was presented.
Thank you, Chris, and thanks for everything.
Sure.
All right, well, if there are there specific questions on Hemlock, should we move to Hemlock Slope and see if there are questions on that? Since that's next on our agenda of how it's stapled or anything to do with that. Would you want to present that?
Well, I think, again, in the packet, you have a memo from Chris related, if we're speaking now about item 5, right?
Yes.
So this is after the bids were received and the tabulation occurred. We've made a recommendation, or Chris is making a recommendation through me to the board on which contractor we would award this to. If the select board approves that tonight, then we will be signing a contract with them tomorrow or in the next day, so that again, Chris can move the pieces of the timing along that need to get done.
Okay. Shall we, would someone move this and then I'll see if there's any further discussion about it? So item number 5.
I move to approve the Hemlock Road slope. What? Oh,
Public comment?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Is public comment?
Yes, I'm sorry. I didn't know. Thank you, Matt, for spotting. Before we get through the motion.
Thank you.
Yes, and can you just identify yourself for
Yeah,
everyone?
this is Ernie Ciccatelli from 49 Tiger Town Road.
Thank you.
Okay, I just want to address the Hemlock Road portion of this because it's the only thing that I've really had time to look at. And it's the only thing that I have some personal experience with. So the first thing I want to do is ask a question, which is, has the town requested and received a report from the slope monitoring, the engineering firm that did the slope monitoring?
Can we refer to Chris to that for that, or do you want to?
Or I, so yes, we have received some periodic reports that have been responded to this board. Related, you're talking about the inclinometer?
Yeah.
So yes, the answer is that.
And what were the results?
We are not seeing any significant slope movement in that area.
Okay, now best of my recollection is at the meeting that they introduced themselves and had done a preliminary study and talked about having put in the inclinometer and all that sort of stuff. They said that they felt that there was no danger of that slope slipping or breaking down or otherwise. Now, considering that the road is well over 200 years old, there's a cemetery with Revolutionary War veterans on that road, so we know it's been there a long time. It's really strange to suddenly think that after all these years, and it was much more heavily used in the past too, because it used to be a through road before the Route 91 was put in. It seems odd that all of a sudden a slope that's been there for thousands of years probably is suddenly failing, and there's only 4 houses on it, actually 3, because one of them was lost in a fire because the fire department was blocked by the town from getting to the fire. So there was a total loss of a house there when they were all evacuated. And now the town is talking about spending or risking spending $800,000 on a project that doesn't seem very clearly needed. I mean, it's not, from what I can tell, and from what the experts that the town has hired and inspected the place has said, there is no slippage. And, it doesn't take an expert to see there are no fissures in the road any longer. And what little fissures there were, they're gone. There's no slopes, no dirt falling into the river. If you look at the river, there's no actual flow at that point of the river. Besides, there's no constant erosion by a moving river because it's dead-ended. I think that anybody, especially the new people on the board, but I think everybody should go out and look without any assistance from any of the proponents of this project. I think you guys ought to go out by yourselves and look at that place and see if in common sense you see anything that indicates what you think would be slippage. And I can tell you that one of the things that would indicate slippage is trees falling down. There are no trees falling down along the slope. You would see dirt and so on in the river. There is no dirt or anything in the river. And as I said, that's just a supposed layperson. I actually have some experience with this sort of stuff, but think of me as a layperson anyways, for the sake of simplicity.
And Ernie, these are all really good points. Can you wrap it up? Just with 3 minutes. So.
Yes, so that's what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
I object to the select board approving this. I think it's foolish. And I think to some degree, it's even allowing it to be in the budget was kind of, I don't know what the right word is, dereliction of duty is a little too strong, but it shouldn't have even been concerned. To think that FEMA is going to come under the circumstances where things literally change day by day, and the simplest thing I can say is the stupidest things change in Washington on a day by day basis. To believe that just because somebody in Vermont says the funds are obligated and are going to be there doesn't mean a thing. I mean, it's in the news all the time now about how things are being decimated and the federal government is just simply not going to do what we all come to believe it's supposed to do. I think that it would be foolish at this point to go any further. I think we should leave it alone. You have an inclinometer, you have a firm that has disagreed with Stantec. I'm not convinced Stantec is an appropriate firm to be dealing with in any case. I've done some research into them. I wouldn't trust them if I were on the select board. I think there are maybe even some personal relationships that have conflicts of interest.
Okay, well, maybe.
Well, the point is that I want to caution the select board for going ahead and approving this tonight. Sometime down in the future, some number of years, I think you may see the inclinometer show something, but if it still has no, if the engineering firm that said that there's nothing to worry about, and they said leave things alone. That was the least intrusive thing. I forgot what they were saying, but there was a high level and a low level of actions to take. And they said, go with the lowest level. Don't do anything. Just we'll put this inclinometer in and use that as a monitor. And since no one's even looked at the thing, apparently the town hasn't asked for a review.
I think you're starting to repeat yourself.
Okay. Well,
I appreciate your comment and also anxiety about, Washington. I'm hoping that as far as the funding, that sounds like that is secure. I will say of anyone going out to look, we're all lay people, but also that, there were cracks that were covered up. Okay, we did have experts look at this. We've been through a whole process. To pull out now might be, it's going to be up to the other people on the board, but thank you. And Priscilla, I think also, do you have a comment?
I have a question. We've been monitoring this with the inclinometers for what, almost 2 years now? Well, over a year, and they've been apparently stable. Is that what I heard from
Ernie?
From
me.
So if it's not moving, then why would we spend more money on it? Or how long would we be keeping the inclinometers in there?
Right, if we wanted to monitor, as Ernie suggested. Brennan?
So I will respond to that if I may. We're doing this today, we're asking for this approval today so that we can take advantage of over $1 million in FEMA funding. If the town was to decide not to move forward with this, and sometime in the future, we have a slope failure on Hemlock Road, the town would be paying for that 100% on our dime. Right now, we're paying for this 2.2% of the total project. And as far as the inclinometers, as Chris mentioned in his summary, those were installed so that we would be aware if there was an imminent failure of that road, that we would need to close the road, we would need to alert the residents. That was never a permanent solution. This was something that was done in the short term to allow us the time that we've had over the last year to work through the FEMA process. So that was the purpose of the inclinometer being installed and being monitored, would be if there was a serious issue, we would need to alert people. We would probably need to close the road. We would have no first responders able to get into that area. So it was really more of a insurance piece for the town. And I would rebut some of Mr. Ciccatelli's comments, but I don't think I will. I'll just let them stand.
Okay, Marcia?
Yeah. I think Chris can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is a town class 3 gravel highway. And by statute, we are required to keep that in good and sufficient repair during all seasons of the year, as Chris knows. And we are on notice that there was a failure, and we've had FEMA come in, and we know that climate change is upon us. We know that, I believe we know that the flood, what do they call it? My brain is going. The dam is under a FERC permit, which is being reapproved, and flowage rights go right up through that Pompanusic inlet. And if we have events, rain events, then it is entirely possible for those flowage rights to be used and those areas to be flooded to keep water back from going flooding downstream. And then that could precipitate another problem, which I think is, we're on notice. But I think what I hope everybody in town is paying attention to is when we approve the bylaws, we need to be thinking about climate change and where we're allowing building and how much it's going to cost us. Because this isn't changing. And so as much as I would like to have to avoid spending money, in this case, we're getting it reimbursed. We went through this same administration 4 years ago, and on a daily basis, I lived through, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And some of it happened, some of it didn't happen, and most of it ends up in court. I think we have to keep living, and we have to proceed to remedy the problems for the people, our neighbors who live in this town.
Matt?
I'm not a subject matter expert on this, but you did refer to looking at it with our own eyes. And so I can only speak to my experience, which is that I was out there the day after it happened, before someone filled it in. And the cracks that ran alongside the road near where it drops off pretty precipitously were significant. So obviously that was the original cause for concern. And I would say that they shouldn't be downplayed, even though that they were filled in by somebody. And also, it seems like here, what we're talking about is our risk for tolerance, or a tolerance for risk, sorry.
Yeah.
And so it seems to me, again, I'm not a subject matter expert, but in looking, when I saw it, if we were to just kind of cover it over, and then we got another significant weather event, there's a huge risk if we don't do anything to it. And so for 2.2% to get that covered, to me, I think that that's probably a good idea.
Madam Chair, may I address?
Yes, I'm noticing that we also have another public comment coming in. So I'm wondering if you might just pause for a minute so we give a person a chance. Will Smith, would you like to comment?
Mary, you need to pull your microphone a little closer. You're hard to hear.
Okay.
I'd like to say I think we need a second opinion, engineering opinion on Hemlock Road. I've looked at it myself. I've spoken with an engineer, and he didn't see any real problem there. I think it could be solved much more cheaply than 800,000 or $1 million, or whatever it is, with some bulldozing, some grading. There's no tipping of the trees. If there's a real slope there, you'd see trees leaning toward the water. There's none of that. And I think it can be a big waste of $800,000 to go ahead with this. At least get a second engineering opinion. And as I said, I think it can be solved much more cheaply by grading, cutting into the bank away from the edge of the slope, and so on. I hate to see this town keep throwing away money. I've seen massive amounts of money thrown away in past select boards and past members. It's time to pull in the spending, the senseless spending, and use a little common sense and look for other solutions, not just one solution. Okay, that's it.
Okay, thanks, Will. And
Okay.
I'm noticing Charlotte. Hang on, Ernie.
That's okay, when you're ready.
Charlotte Metcalf? Did you want
Hi,
to speak?
everybody. I must say that I had reservations about the need for this repair until a member of the town crew, who is not here represented tonight, sent me photographs of the actual damage that occurred before someone filled it in. And it was alarming. So I must say that I have totally reversed my opinion or questions about whether this is needed. I feel that what I saw in those photographs justified what the town is proposing to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte. Okay, don't see any more online. Ernie, can you briefly?
I'm just going to describe what I saw.
Sure.
I went up there the day after all of this occurred too, and I saw the ravine as well. The ravine itself, because after I went up there several times and I saw it after it was covered in, and then I went up quite a bit later after they put up the Jersey barriers. And what I noticed at first was that the ravine basically went through gravel. And you can tell the gravel is different from the base.
Are you speaking of the crack in the road?
Yes.
When you say the ravine?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, okay, crack. What word do we want to agree on?
Ravine might be the, you know, the
Fissure?
the cliff that you'd fall down if the road failed.
Okay.
It's a larger feature. I think.
Right. The fissure,
Okay,
Fissure.
crack or fissure, okay,
all right, the fissure.
yes.
And it was not very deep, really. I mean, it went through the entire gravel level, which is about a foot or so thick, which is typical of the gravel roads throughout the town from years and years, you know, but it came to a stop. And what I noticed is the way that particular road, because of slopes and all kinds of stuff, you can see as it comes up the hill, it rounds off. But then the road comes at it and then has a relatively sharp delineation, and then kind of tapers down off onto the curved part of the hill. And that was what was separating, was a relatively narrow band on the edge of the road of gravel. And it does look terrible. It did look terrible. And the later ones that were a bit smaller looked terrible too. But it's all just gravel. There's nothing, it doesn't get into the base of the hillside. And you know, like you could stick a stick down in it. It can only go like a foot at most. Well, that's gravel. You know, that was what I observed. Okay. And you know, I don't know if, you know, I think that what we're talking about is gravel falling off the side of the hill, maybe, but you don't even see it spilling down the side of the hill. It just cracks away and then it sits there. It looks awful, but I think it's cosmetic at this point.
Okay,
I'm done.
thanks so much, Ernie.
Thank you for letting me talk.
Prasad?
I think this comes down to our risk tolerance, as Matt said. And that may be very different for every one of us, even though we're doing our best to represent the town and do what's best for the town. You know, do you think that nature has a way of healing itself? The earth does move a bit. I mean, you live in an old house, maybe not such an old house. It shifts, it moves. It doesn't mean it's necessarily fine. And maybe this has healed itself. So it depends on your risk tolerance for whether you think the road is actually stable enough to be safe, and whether you think that the funding is going to be stable. And this is not exactly risk tolerance. You could say if we weren't such a frankly wealthy town, would we be going here at all? So.
All right. Timo?
Yeah, thanks. So I live on a somewhat marginal dirt road. Having grown up here, I've seen large unexpected failures that, you know, a perfectly good road suddenly had huge holes in it. Stopped traffic, couldn't get up or down. Very expensive to fix. I went and drove the road the other day, and what I saw was a very steep slope that I was surprised had a road on it at all. That is not a natural place to put a road. And the hill is on the move. The trees coming out of the hill grow out sideways and up. That's a sign of a slope going slowly downward and the tree continuing to try to find vertical daylight. All the trees are bent like that. That slope is moving. If I had to guess, I'm guessing that road is not where it was. It's lower. And it's going to continue to get lower unless you keep filling. If you keep filling, you're adding more weight to a slope that's already unstable. It wouldn't surprise me personally, looking at it, to see another failure there. That's true of many of our roads in this town, but since we're looking at that one in particular, I wasn't surprised to hear that it might need shoring up. Even though I agree, it looks stable to me. I felt safe driving over it, but it has failed once, and that seems like a sign that this is not a stable situation.
I'm noticing that Chris Kaufman has his hand up. Chris?
Yeah, I just want to also add that we did get mitigation funds for this. This was above and beyond, and that's available for FEMA. So as a part of our mitigation request that was approved, we're going to be putting a barrier, basically a barrier to keep people from accidentally driving off the slope. So that's going to be put in along the entire roadway, which is I think a really positive thing. We're also improving the culverts up there. There's a couple that are in really poor condition, so I think that'll also help eliminate any stormwater that's maybe finding its way through into the slope through some sort of potential damage to the culvert over time. So those are several mitigation benefits we're getting in addition to the repair. So thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Other comments? Are we ready to vote? Or actually have to, I think Marcia made a motion. Do we have a second for the motion?
And about 4 words into it, Joyce.
Yeah, maybe you should do it.
I move to approve the Hemlock Road slope stability and culvert replacement construction project with Waters Excavation Inc. for a total of $799,670.
Is there a second?
A second.
Any further discussion? No? Okay, well, let's go to the vote. Marcia, how do you vote?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
And Kimo?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So that's unanimous. All right. 6 is the culverts project. So the first project was Hemlock Road. The next one is the 3 culverts. Do you want to say anything further about culverts? Have we heard enough, or where they are, what they're about? We've heard a pretty thorough explanation, but can move it. Why don't we? Okay, let's move it and then we'll just check again.
Okay, I move to approve the FEMA storm event culverts project with Northwoods Excavating Inc. for a total of $768,281.48.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay. So Marcia, how do you vote?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
Kimo?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So that's unanimous also.
Sorry, I see Pam Smith with a hand up.
Okay. Pam? Would you like to speak to this? I don't know if she's there.
Muted.
Can you hear me?
She's muted. Okay. Yes, we can hear.
I
Thanks.
was having trouble seeing the unmute button on my screen. For some reason, it's not showing up. Anyway, I was just wondering, can you explain to me exactly where the culvert is on Norford Lake Road that's being replaced?
I'm going to refer to town manager and possibly Chris for that. The specific location of the culvert on Norford Road.
I'll pass that along to Chris for
Second.
specific coordinates.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Chris, you want
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry. It's at the corner of Ladue Road and Norford Lake, right before Ladue.
Okay, thank you.
Before Ladue Road.
I thought that was replaced when the first flood happened in July of 17. We didn't put a new culvert in July of 17?
Of
Chris,
2017?
do you want to?
Yes, July 1, 2017, we had a huge flood
Yeah.
and that whole area was washed out. I thought a new culvert was put in at that point.
I do not believe it was, and if it had been, FEMA wouldn't have up, the culvert was undersized, so I don't believe it was upgraded. I wasn't here for that, but it wasn't upgraded, because if it hadn't been, then it would have been a different, culvert at that point, so.
Different outcome.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Mhm.
Thank you, Pam.
I'm having trouble unmuting or muting myself, so if somebody can do that, I would greatly appreciate it.
Okay, good to know. Thanks. All right. Do we need some background on the construction inspection work for the culverts? That's to keep it on track. That would be 7. Marcia?
I was just gonna ask Chris, I lost you for a minute. We've got one bid and we can't do much about that. I'm just wondering, based on your experience, is that a reasonable price for this work?
Yeah, yes, I believe so. These culverts are in 3 different locations, and one of them in particular, Illsley's on the other end of town. So there's going to have to be some traveling and moving around to coordinate all of this. So actually, I felt it was a good price, and I believe that based on the fact that they're going to be doing the Hemlock Road as well, we will probably end up seeing some benefit there with time and cooperation. So that cost me even. We based on this on a 12-week and the engineer's estimate of 12 weeks. If it becomes more efficient, then I could see some benefit there. But a lot of that is in the hands of the contractors yet, and we're still trying to work out schedules. But we're working on trying to get these contracts approved so we can take that next step. So,
Thank you.
mhm.
Question? Is this for Chris or, okay, what's the question? Comment?
Yeah, I'm a little confused, and maybe it's because these two, I guess they're 2 projects with very similar sounding names. The one like the first one we voted on
Was
and very similar amounts of money.
Culverts.
Yeah. Hemlock Road stabilization and culvert bid recommendation, and then FEMA's storm event culvert bid recommendation. We voted $51,000 for construction inspection services in February. And now we have this request for 91 or something. I mean, it's like, I'm confused.
There are a lot of payments. Let's ask Brennan about that.
So they're 2 distinct projects. So what was done in February was the construction inspection bid and approval for Hemlock Road. What we're doing tonight is the same company, but the 3 culverts that we just talked about and approved the construction for. So 2 separate distinct projects, 2 separate bids for the construction inspection, the same firm bidding for both of those construction inspection services. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Other questions? Is there a motion?
Make it. I move to approve the construction inspection work for the Illsley Road, Kate Wallace Road, and Norford Lake Road culvert replacements project with Dubois and King, Inc. for a total of $91,500.
A second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Let's have a vote. Marcia, how do you vote?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
Kimo?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. All right, that's a go. Oh, Marcia?
I just want to ask Chris, about a year ago, he told me there were 1,000 culverts in Norwich. And I think it'd be really interesting if we kept like a tab on the website, 1,001, 1,002, it looks, we've got a lot of culverts, and I think people need to know how many we have.
That would be a great graphic. Maybe we'll find a graphic designer
Yes,
somewhere.
our internship for somebody like to walk around outside.
Yes.
We could have an adopt a culvert program.
All right,
Pay for it.
Good idea.
Eagle Scout project.
very good. All right, thank you. I think it's just exciting to get this little bow on this one.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks a bunch, Chris. Okay, so number 8 is a fire department spending request for apparatus bay heating repair. We have we have our deputy chief. Do we have our chief?
Do you have Mr. Northern here with us?
Okay, Chief Northern, do you want to speak to this request?
Sure. Evening, folks. I'm not sure how much I really can add. We had an event during the severe cold snap back in January where the heating system on the apparatus floor essentially wasn't working. It wasn't heating to capacity. It wasn't heating to what we needed to heat to. And so I called the usual company that repairs things of this sort. They came, they made their diagnosis, and unfortunately, we have the bill. I added the bill, and you can see that there was extensive work done on the heating system in the apparatus bay. If you look at the page of the quote from ARC, the summary, it's entitled, you can see actually all the work that had to be done to enable us to keep our fire apparatus in a state of readiness.
All right, any questions for Chief? Priscilla?
Maybe they just left something off their bill, but task description, we have Dylan McGuire at $85 an hour, and then on one day and another day, he's on $135 an hour. Some of the other guys that put overtime, why is Dylan McGuire suddenly so much more expensive?
You want to answer that, Chief?
I'm sorry, what's the
Particulars.
question?
Could you say it again, Priscilla?
Yeah, under task description, it's listing the technicians and their hourly rate and how many hours. Dylan McGuire came on January 24th and was billed out at $85 an hour. He came back on the 31st and was billed out at $135 an hour. I'm just wondering why his rate went up so much, because they do indicate overtime for some of the guys, but I don't know, from 85 to 135.
Priscilla, I think the one I'm looking at doesn't say that. It says 131. Oh, no, sorry.
Yeah, and 124 was
Got it.
85 and the 131 was 135. Yeah, that's correct.
Just wondering.
Yeah, Priscilla, I have no idea. I mean, that's what they charge. And they were here long hours into the wee hours into the night fixing. So I'm assuming that what they have down there reflects what they get paid to do this kind of work at that time of day.
All right, any further questions? Would someone make a motion?
Move to approve the expenditure of $5,466.55 from the Fire Department Apparatus Bay Fund number 25 and $4,063.65 from the Public Safety Facility Fund number 47 to repair the fire apparatus bay heating system.
Your second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Oh, we have public comments. Let's take the comments. I didn't see who was first. but
Cheryl.
Let's go with Cheryl Lindbergh.
Oh, Charlotte.
Okay.
Yeah,
Hang on.
thank you. Thank you, Mary. I just noticed these are coming from reserve funds, and I understand from the documents, it looks like it was urgently needed, but was this reported to the select board upon the occurrence? So there was an anticipation of a need from the fund prior to tonight?
I would think
No.
no. But I think it does sound like an emergency fund, so.
Well, I just want to, make it clear for other new select board members that reserve funds are typically requested in advance of a commitment. So was checking to see if this came forward in previous conversations with the select board before tonight.
And
Part
I
of the
guess the
policy.
answer is no.
Yeah.
Yes, I think the answer is no, but it also came up suddenly. It was very cold and we don't want our fire engines we want them to be in a state of readiness, as the chief said. So,
Right, it happened
you're-
in January. This is March. That was my only point.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good point.
Well, I mean,
Are you-
it took a while for them to generate the invoice, right? So that took some time, I guess. And once it was received, it was addressed right away, and there had to be some conversations about where the money was coming from because it was a large sum. So I'm not sure if that's an unduly long time, but that's kind of how it worked out.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Charlotte Metcalf?
Did I hear January 31st?
Uh,
Yeah.
One of the dates.
Yeah.
I guess there were two dates. One of them was January 31st.
I mean, no wonder in the middle of the night. Yeah, I
So
just,
they came, the first diagnosis was on January 21st, right? Then
Oh.
they came on the 24th and then came back on the 31st.
Okay, does that answer your question, Charlotte?
yes, I'm sorry. I was thinking December 31st. I was thinking it was New Year's Eve. Sorry. And I
They
thought,
did work.
you
till
know,
midnight.
they can charge extra overtime. I'm sorry. My mistake.
Okay, thanks, Charlotte. Okay, further discussion?
I did have one
FEMA?
question.
Yeah.
This equipment is not that old, correct?
Some of it is.
Oh, okay. I'm just the sludge in the pipes. So that's an old system, maybe?
Oh, I'm
Okay.
sorry. I thought you were talking about our fire apparatus, not,
I
not
thought-
the apparatus.
No. The heating.
We've
system.
got
I know there
some
was
really
work
new
done on the
apparatus and
building.
we've got some really old apparatus. I thought that's what we were talking about. No, the system, where the apparatus is housed is the original fire department structure. And
Yeah, okay.
as far as I know, that heating system in there, which I've been told is an excellent system that we should continue to fix and not replace with something newer, is just old and it needs to be maintained. And we've been waiting for the right time to budget for the financing of fixing it. And unfortunately, the weather and circumstance beat us to the punch. So we kind of really had no
Okay.
choice but to, invest this money now to make sure that,
Yep.
we're operational.
Got it. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. All right, are we ready to vote? Okay, Marcia, how do you vote? Yes. And Matt?
Yes.
Zilla? Yes. Eva?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay, now we're going to move on to the
Thank you.
police department. Thanks, Larry. Police department spending request for police specialty equipment, which was listed. I actually Googled it to see what it was, but perhaps we can ask the chief to explain what it is and its purpose and why it's needed.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity. We have two basic categories of equipment we're requesting authorization for tonight. And really, I guess fundamentally, the reason this comes before you is because the money that we're looking to expend is in one of the reserve funds. We have a fairly substantial list of things we're working our way through, somewhat in a priority basis about what we want to look at and work on specifying and purchasing next. The first part of this is sets of forcible entry equipment. This is kind of one of the things that was identified in the last few years that is somewhat necessary to have in our police vehicles assigned out, ready to go in the event of a wide range of emergencies. On this particular gear, we've looked at and specified out after looking at across the industry for options and sort of best practices and how they're made and how they're outfitted and how they work for us. That's the first part of it. The other part of it is, and unfortunately has gathered a little bit of attention on the listserv within the past. And, I could just plead with those who wish to take cases to the listserv. My phone hasn't rung with a question about any of this. And I wish we could start there. I think it would make life a whole lot easier. We are one of the very few law enforcement agencies in the Upper Valley that do not currently carry tire deflation devices within our vehicles. They are a fairly standard piece of equipment in law enforcement circles. What sort of made this bubble up in our priority list, if you're not aware, last year, Vermont saw the highest number of wrong way drivers on the interstates throughout the state. They ran about double what would be considered an average number. And as a matter of fact, within the last 2 weeks, we had one on 91 that started off right around us and actually was stopped down just below Windsor Springfield area. There was also an incident earlier this week where a driver actually fled from the state police in our area because they had outstanding warrants. These turn into incredibly dangerous situations, not only for the law enforcement officers involved, but the public. You only need to look back. I believe it was 2018 where there was a horrendous incident in Hartford. There was the incident up in Burlington that involved all the college students a few years ago. I think we sort of owe it to ourselves and to the public to be ready to stand in during one of those incidents. This particular purchase, I do not think that I put worst case numbers in when I submitted it to you. I don't think we're going to expend that full amount. And I've just learned today that we actually have a grant coming for a couple of sets of these. It's not a dollars grant, it's an equipment grant where they send us the actual equipment. So those, again, worst case scenario numbers, I don't think we're going to approach that dollar figure. With that, I'll take questions.
What is the dollar figure? Because the numbers don't add up on the sheet we're looking at.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick.
We've got 2,350 for irons, 30-inch, 338 for sledgehammer, 343 for irons, for 3,000. Then you've got another 5,555 plus 520 plus 930. That's another 7,000. So the total seems to come to over $10,000, but it's listed as 7,500.
My apologies. I'm scrolling through the packet.
Page 35, if that helps.
There we are. So, yeah. So if you're on, if you're on 35. So, yes, I made the Excel spreadsheet incorrectly. My apologies. So the MHQ and shipping is $7,500, and the irons above it is 3,032. So that is my error.
Okay.
That's my error, and my apologies. That's what happens when you get a Bachelor of Arts guy building an Excel spreadsheet. So I will tell you that we are not going to approach that $7,500 number on the spikes. I would be surprised if we are over $4,000, honestly, by the time we're done with it. We found a better source that does not mark them up and does not hit us so hard on shipping. So in addition to diminishing our numbers that we're looking at.
Any more follow-up?
My second was, this comes out of money that's already been voted into your budget.
That is correct.
So you're essentially telling us how you'd like to spend the money that you have already been.
Well, it's in
to
a
spend.
reserve fund,
Yes.
so it's something
In a reserve fund. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, just to clarify, it's not in a budget, but it's designated in our fund to be used by the police for these purposes. When it gets drawn out, it's a process where these need to come to the select board for approval. And we do this on a pretty regular basis where, you know, invoices come in or we want to make a purchase and the select board needs to approve it.
Okay, I have a suggestion. When we move this to, that we say up to, since it sounds like, you know, it could be much less.
Yeah.
Just on the motion, it says I move to approve the 7,500. Yes, Priscilla?
Do we want to change the $7,500 to the 10,532? That is what it actually adds up to, the two things?
Well, if we
Or
say,
are we just going to assume that it's not going to cost that much?
well, I mean, the chief is saying he thinks it might come in more around 4,000.
Yeah.
We could hold him to that and just say, move to approve up to 4,000, or we could
But
leave it at the 7,500.
But I thought it was, the request was not just for the spike things, but also for the Leatherhead tools.
But he's saving money.
He found another vendor, is what he just said.
Well, and that would be for that
And a grant.
7,500. I would expect total between both of these would be close to that $7,500 mark.
Okay, Brennan?
I was just gonna suggest, again, so that we don't have an issue where we're underspending, that we pick
We don't have to come back.
a conservatively high number that the chief is comfortable with for both of the expenditures, and then not to exceed that amount is approved, and then he's able to negotiate and try to find a better deal if he can. So
Yeah,
I was just gonna say, Matt, so what is the number for this that you would like tonight with a little conservative mindset?
If you're going to ask me to go conservatively high, I would say not to exceed 10,000 and know that we're coming in well below that.
Strong number.
yeah,
I just asked one question because it came up. If memory serves, when Doug Robinson was the police chief here, he got rid of spikes because of an incident that had happened with a state trooper using spikes. So the logical question is, with this kind of tools, do you do training with them?
There is a training and certification process. We actually have a certified trainer on staff. Sergeant Rogers is a factory certified trainer. So we would be, implementing that, and that would be part of our annual workups as well for training. And I'm cognizant of the risk, but I think the risk is lower by giving us the tools to do it in a safer manner than, having an officer have to run through this decision process of, okay, I've got a wrong way driver coming down through here. Am I going to go ram the vehicle and put so many other people at a bigger risk to try to stop somebody from doing, serious damage to the public? Excuse me.
are there other board questions? Priscilla?
Maybe this is stupid, but I'm suddenly thinking that I did once see somebody going the wrong way down 91, and it was terrifying. He wasn't in my side of the highway, but how do you get the other people going the right way out of the way so they don't?
That's probably the problem with it.
There's a
You mean
there's a balancing act.
people answer?
There's a balancing act to be had of, stopping the vehicles that are going in the wrong direction, and also, the best case scenario, stopping the wrong way driver. And part of the benefit of using spikes to do it is with minimal staffing, we can drop that one car, drop their tires in a controlled manner, and get it down to a safer interdiction quicker.
Other board questions? I'm going to take a couple of public comments. Otherwise, let's see, Chris Clement.
Charlotte's had her hand up for a while.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Charlotte Metcalf?
Yes. The chief answered one of my questions, but we've really been talking about highway incidents. And can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Highway incidents. And I'm concerned about how this could be deployed or how he envisions it being deployed in a town like Norwich. Where does he, in other words, where does the imagination take you that allows you to deploy this for the town of Norwich? And all I can think about is the person driving the vehicle losing control in an area where there are pedestrians or other vehicles or infrastructure. And it just, I understand, I have great respect for Stuart Rogers, and am sure that everybody will be well trained. But I also wonder how many hours a week there are people on patrol who could respond to an incident that is so immediate, given that we have a shortage of police and of people who are trained to work this kind of equipment. Thank you.
All right. Chief, would you like to respond to that?
Well, as far as where, I think it's very easy to contemplate deploying these on the interstate, on Highway 5. There's Norwich has a lot of throughways, not just those two, but we have a lot of throughways connecting from other towns and other parts of the state. As far as hours, I'm happy to remind everybody that we're only one position short of being full now. We have Officer Ribbentish is out working on his own now. He still has some more time to go in getting his waiver finished out, but we have more coverage than we've had since I've been here, and I'm hoping we can improve that by one more officer pretty soon.
I'm sorry, is he certified to chase somebody on the highway as you are?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. My understanding was that he was a recent graduate of training, so I didn't know that. Both
He's a very experienced officer. He's just new to the state of Vermont, so we have to get him through what's called the waiver process.
Terrific. Glad to hear that.
Thank you, Charlotte. Chris Clement?
Okay, so thank you, Charlotte. That was one of my questions, was that if the state is having a run on the highway, are they going to actually contact somebody from Norwich and ask them to join in on this? You didn't really specifically answer that question. Are they going to employ a Norwich officer to join in on the state chasing and you deploy your spike strips?
Absolutely. It happens fairly routinely. We back up the state police, they back us up.
Okay. So the second question is, you said sort of generally that we're one of the few towns that do not have spike strips. The Upper Valley is pretty large. We're a fairly rural town. I could easily see Hartford because of all the different boroughs they have, so to speak. But Hanover possibly, but does Thetford have them? Does Heartland have them? Does Sharon have them? Does Etna have them? A lot of towns in the Upper Valley. I just want to know where we stand. Of the 30 towns that make up the Upper Valley, like I said, I could see Hanover and Hartford having them, or maybe some towns along the highway. But again, we're a pretty rural town. Does Thetford have them?
Well, I'll just remind you that Heartland and Sharon don't have police departments, so I'm not sure how that would affect them. But I don't speak for those departments. You'll need to check in with them.
Well, I'm sorry. You just said to us as evidence to your need for these, that you just said everybody else in the Upper Valley pretty much has these. So I'm not quite sure, what you're talking about. Does Thetford have them? So if somebody's chasing and runs through Norwich and then runs from Thetford to Norwich, does Thetford have them as well? Or Sharon? Because they are member town, not member towns, they're bordering towns. Do they have them?
Well, you'll need to call Thetford Police and ask them, and I'll just again remind you, Sharon does not have a police department.
Okay, again, you said that every Upper Valley town has them. So now you've just said that these guys don't have them. So,
So
Chris?
yeah,
Thank you for your comment. I think the chief I think he's answered it. He may have answered in an unclear way at first, but I think he's given an answer. Do you have a different sort of question to ask or?
no, I think it was great that Charlotte asked the question that I was leading up to. I think that's a good clarification.
Okay.
My general question, as anybody else in a small rural town, is why Norwich? And if other small rural towns are doing this, then that's fair enough to know, but it doesn't seem that that has been answered, but whatever.
Okay, and also I think initial statement was Norwich backing up the state police and state police backing up Norwich. And what's not rural about our town at all is the interstate. And sort of secondary to that is Route 5. Those north-south corridors where people can travel very fast. And there's, travel from other states. There's, sort of more action on those roads, I would say.
True enough,
So-
and Thetford also has a highway run through, so I'd just be curious. Thetford has a police department, and I'd be curious to know if they have them.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
Yep.
Charlotte, do you have a follow-up?
Just a follow-up for the chief.
Okay.
Would he ever employ the spikes in the town of Norwich? Because I worry about collateral damage and, in fact, children, the school. Dan and Wits, does he did specify that it would be backup for state police. Does he imagine ever using it inside the town of Norwich? That is what.
Chief, do you want? Okay.
I absolutely could contemplate that, but I could contemplate almost any scenario as well. The basics of these allow for a controlled deflation of a vehicle's tires, and that allows that incident to be brought under control in a much safer manner than, for instance, a precision intervention tactic where, commonly called the pit maneuver, vehicle ramming. All of those kind of things are very uncontrolled scenarios where, a tire deflation system is a much more controlled way to end an incident.
And a lot of other
Okay.
things, unfortunately. Okay,
Thanks, Charlotte. Kimo?
Maybe you covered this already, Chief, but my understanding is this is also a way to keep a suspected criminal felon who you might have stopped from fleeing by using these as a preventative device before you engage them.
That is correct.
Yeah, okay, so that's something you would use in town.
Right, like the rat trap, the smaller
Yeah,
version.
yeah.
Yes. Priscilla?
I'd kind of like to move the question, but I'm not sure how much money we're putting on the motion.
Yeah, we'll be discussing that. Charlotte, do you have a quick follow-up?
Oh, thank you.
Your hands-
I'll lower my hand. I still am
Okay.
very concerned about the
Okay,
collateral damage, but that's all I'm going to say.
okay, thank you very much. All right, are there questions about what we're voting for? Okay, are there questions of the amount? Because our original motion was for 7,500. And then the chief said, well, it could be less than that. And then Brennan is suggesting that 10 might be wise. We said up to. So we have to figure out what are we comfortable doing here. Marcia?
I guess I always come down to, we voted monies for departments to spend. It's a special fund in their best judgment. And it's in their best interest to spend it wisely because they may want other things that will need other things. So I would be comfortable saying 10,000, knowing that he's not out to just spend $10,000, but it saves us having a situation where something untoward happens. But I don't think he's trying to spend his entire budget.
Okay,
It's not a budget, his entire reserve fund.
sure. So,
I think we need to be clear what the equipment is, because if we're talking about just the spikes, that's one thing, but I think we're talking about the spikes and the Leatherhead.
I think it's
Yeah.
combined. Yeah,
It's what was
Yeah.
here, just with
Yeah.
correct map.
Thank you.
and shipping sounded as though the first firm had large shipping costs. There might be a way to find a firm with lower costs, so there's a little flexibility there. Okay, shall we move this with 10? Okay,
Yeah, I move to approve the expenditure of up to $10,000 from the Police Specialty Equipment Fund number 21 to purchase requested equipment.
is there a second?
Second,
Okay, any further discussion?
Could save money by raiding people's barns for old axes and crowbars.
I know it sounds a
Do
bit
everybody a
medieval. But they're tools. Okay, let's see. So let's vote. Marcia
yes.
and Matt,
Yes.
Priscilla,
No, because it sounds as though 7,500 might actually cover both sets of tools. I'm not against both sets of tools. But
Right.
It might cover it.
okay, and Kimo,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. All righty. Okay, now we're gonna get fancy because we have to recess this for the new members. We have to recess as a select board and come back as liquor board.
Shall I start? the
Thanks, everyone.
process?
Yes,
Thanks, Chief.
thanks so much, Keith. Oh, and you have to know the time, so go ahead.
Move to recess the meeting of the select board at 8:17 PM o'clock for the purpose of executing the duties of the local liquor control commissioners under the authority of 7 VSA section 167 et sec.
For a second,
Second.
okay. Let's see. Let's do this differently. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. And then we have to actually make the decisions about approving the licenses. So on the page and also,
Aye.
yes.
No, Lily's got her hand up, but if I move this, we could have.
Well, let's move it and then we'll discuss.
I move to approve the second class license application number 53363 for Fraser's General Store, Inc. The first class license application 54664 for Green Visions LLC, DBA The Norwich Inn. The second class license application number 54657 for Green Visions LLC, DBA The Norwich Inn. The third class license application number 54662 for Green Visions LLC, DBA The Norwich Inn. And the outside consumption permit application number 54658 for Green Visions LLC, doing business as The Norwich Inn.
For a second,
Second.
okay, let's, shall we recognize our town clerk? Lily?
Hi, thank you. I am simply here if you have questions, because I know that two of you may not have done this renewal before, but it's a
Okay.
bog standard renewal.
Thank you very much. Are there questions?
We should all go have a drink after.
Patronize after that. All right, well, if there are no questions. Let's see, let's have a vote. Marcia, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Matt?
Yes.
Hello?
Yeah.
Emo?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Now we need a motion to close our commission. Would you, someone move that?
Do it, I vote to close, I move to close the Norwich Liquor Commission session at 8:20 PM o'clock and reconvene the select board meeting.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Have a vote. Marcia, how do you vote?
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
yeah, Emo,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay, so now we are back as the select board. Do we want to have a 5-minute break before we brainstorm? Okay, shall we come back at, Brennan, we thought we could use a 5-minute break. Come back, or maybe come back at 8:30. Sound okay? Enough?
You wonder if someone was under the influence.
Oh, gosh. The spelling isn't too great, is it?
Thursdays.
This is a quick moving board. We're getting through a lot of things else.
They're almost unanimous.
Great. All right,
Recording in progress.
now we're back on.
Back on record. Yep.
Okay, we're reconvening after a break, and we have our probably most creative agenda item here, which is the some town goals brainstorming. And my idea with this is that we might put a few goals out that would be either for select board or town manager, or sometimes there has to be a collaboration. And I also thought of some buckets. I'm just gonna put this as a suggestion. So I was thinking projects, policy, oversight, communication would be the buckets that I would think about.
Projects, policy.
Projects like Tracy Hall, policy, because there's at least two that I think are rather urgent, and there's one on deck, the animal ordinance. Oversight might be any questions about the audit, and also, for instance, the DPW cash issue. And communication is just, do we want a spokesperson? Would we want to think ahead before we change the date of our information meeting? Do we want to jazz up our slide deck? Just those sort of things. So those are just buckets that I thought of. And my thought is to maybe put paper on the wall and just generate some. And I'm welcome for any other ideas too. Marcia?
And for our ease of looking at this, could it be?
Well, actually, now without the public, we could move there. We had it all, he's got it this so at home.
We need it. Need it in view of the camera there.
So he's figured that part.
Anybody on Zoom can see it. Very poorly lit though.
It's actually much better.
No, chemo, we can see that fine. Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay, excellent.
not too dark.
Can you write on it? You must be the scribe here.
There you go. How's that?
Yep.
So, projects? Will I just write these out?
I guess so. It's just a way to get us started.
Projects,
Policy. Oversight.
failed penmanship, by the way.
That's okay. I think you get it. Communication, there are gonna be a lot of ends.
Communication.
I think it's communication, yeah. So this bucket idea is mine. Anybody else have a new bucket or suggestion, Marcia?
Don't have a new bucket, but some things that might be a little hard to fit in one of those.
Okay, good.
But also, I'm just thinking maybe we could identify them as like low hanging fruit, middle tier.
Oh, yes, definitely.
And upper tier.
Yes, we're gonna have to, because the months between now and budget season go like lightning. So we have to be very spare with what we actually do. Maybe we can delegate some things, but, or, you know, a committee working on it too. But yeah, we don't have a lot of time to get things done. I also thought similar to when you have, you have to organize a fundraising event. When it's a big one at school, we always start with the event, work backwards. So we could think of where do we want to be at this time next year might be just a good, thing to think about. And with that, we could start if you want. I can say mine, the town manager may have an idea too. Probably Tracy Hall is major for a project, I would think.
No.
Yeah, that's so odd.
Yeah.
Possibly decisions about the Moore Bridge, would you agree?
Yeah.
It's not really a project, but it's maybe more oversight, but.
Are we allowed to speak without being recognized?
No, I just tried to make some categories to start the conversation.
Oh, okay.
So
that we can have a conversation.
Website,
communication.
And I'm no good.
We're here.
Sorry. Yeah, more's fine there. And then website there, under communication.
Yep, and I would say our IT in general.
Okay. I would say under that, the possibly the information meeting, we had talked about maybe changing the date, although it's mammoth undertaking. That would be a lot of communication involved in that, and we're thinking if you had it on a Saturday, if all the stars aligned, it might draw more people in and be more of a community event. But it's like you'd have to start months ahead.
Can I ask a question related to that?
Sure.
Is there any chance a town meeting day, whatever, come back?
No,
No.
absolutely not. It's not coming back. Well, it could come back, it could come back, but I think it's very unlikely. And I think I know other towns are trying to do that, like Stratford, Vermont. And they really debated it. They have more participation with the Australian ballot. And it's a small, passionate group that can show up at town meeting usually, which is sort of fine, except they don't really represent the electorate.
Okay.
But it's also very chopped up. How you learn anything about how the budget's going together or anything that needs to be decided. So that's why it's in the communications bucket, because it needs work. So it might be info meeting. And I think our slide deck could just sort of be more jazzy. That's kind of PR stuff, you know?
I would, if I could add to communication,
Yes.
like I kind of, when we were doing goals, mine were more overarching, but for one of my goals was sort of improved community engagement.
Yes.
When I began thinking about running for select board, I was like, I was trying to figure out, we're here to represent our community members, and how do we get that information from them? And how do we make sure that it's lower the bar, make it as easy as possible for them to get firsthand information so that they can create their own informed opinions.
Mhm.
But like, they need to be getting the information firsthand, whether it's coming into the meetings, whether it's using them virtually or just watching the videos afterwards.
Mhm.
And so how can we make that as easy as possible? And then I had a bunch of bullet points, like ways to do it, but I think that that's getting into the weeds, but like improved community engagement would be.
So community engagement.
That's under communication?
Yes.
Yeah.
Tempting to just dive into the weeds.
Yeah, and that's right. I think that this is like an overarching thing, but I've got plenty of like small, like low hanging fruit things that we could probably do quickly.
Yeah.
That might make it very easy for people to at least get the first person information.
Yeah, well, one idea that I had along these lines was something I'm kind of calling headlines. If you want, when you look up a case, it's got head notes. And it's not official, but it's like a summary of what happened.
Like an abstract.
Like an abstract, but it's really short.
Right.
And I was playing, in my mind with something that we could post, things that are hot topics that get picked up on the listserv and go round in circles. We could maybe have, that topic, the meeting that it happened at, and a brief summary of what happened.
I see.
So that when people have questions, if they're reluctant to pick up the phone and call the police chief or the town manager, they could look at the headlines. And those headlines would have to be approved by us before they went up, so that, we were all on the same page about what's being put out there.
That sounds great. I'll just say as a sidebar to that Jenny and Emma were talking about some towns have time stamps on their minutes. And that way someone could find the topic in the minutes that they were interested in.
Yep.
So we might like to consider that.
And I've mentioned it, I don't know if Lily has come up with it, but at one meeting she was talking about buying a piece of software, and I asked if it could actually maintain the minutes so that they were searchable. And I think she thought that that might be possible.
Okay,
That to me would be low hanging fruit if she could do it.
right,
Hmm.
right.
The timestamping the topics in the video would be huge, in the recording of this.
Yes,
So that people who only cared about Emma Ash Borer could just do that. And then if we just posted those chapters on the listserv,
Mhm.
then like, it's so easy to participate if you want to.
right.
Could we not do things on the listserv? I'd rather use the website.
Well,
Hmm.
well, I mean,
Or
you
everywhere.
could just, refer people to the website and just, but Jenny's all over this timestamp thing. She's okay with trying it. So that's a great idea.
I say time stamping.
The minutes.
Okay.
So that would be making a reference between the minutes and the YouTube of the meeting, which has timestamps
Yep.
for different issues. Okay. Let's move up to policy. I believe the purchasing policy, I believe is one that I think town manager would like to have reviewed, right? And then the gift policy has been floating around for a while. So let's do purchasing.
The gift one ready to be reviewed again.
Excuse me?
I've got the gift one ready to be reviewed again. It's been sort of sitting.
Oh, it's ready for review.
Yeah, so that's low hanging.
Very nice. And also after gift, you could put animal ordinance, which is, I'm very excited about that. That's ready to review.
Animal
Animal ordinance. So it's like sort of a leash law, only more comprehensive
ordinance,
ordinance.
ORD.
Goodness.
INANCE. Ordinance.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we also have to go through what's on the website because some of those policies are outdated, like the sexual harassment policy is now.
It's been replaced by a new one, but it's
Well,
not.
it's not on our personnel policy.
Right. So it's
Oh, okay.
Removed. It's
So
just-
that's,
still there.
No.
so that's a communication one, right?
Maybe. It's under policies. But I think we need to also just go through those policies and see what links are, we need newer versions that have been approved because some of them are, I think, are older.
Yes. Do we consider the handbook to be communication or a statement of our policies? Not really, right? I mean,
It's really just a coalescing of statutes so that people can say, oh, we have, this group, whether they're elected officials or appointed people, and how do they operate? Is there a statute that says what they have to do?
right.
So it's not really our policy. It's
No,
just,
it's not. Okay. Well, just being able to reference, as you say, having everything updated would be good. That might be a
we have
website.
Writing something.
We're trying to figure out where to put it.
communication.
Communication, I like that.
I think communication.
Yeah, what are we calling it? Update, current policies, keep policies current, something like that.
I mean, maybe somebody could just go through those and check. But I think one of the things we have to do, which is also low hanging fruit, is finish the select and approve the handbook.
Mhm.
And then get to the next steps, which are how are we going to have a rotating review of committees and stuff?
Right. So that's probably, is that communication, you think? Or is that oversight?
Communication, well, it's both, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is public.
The handbook is something Marcia's been working on for a while. So we're trying to approve the committees first, because they're sort of sprouting up ad hoc because we have very enthusiastic volunteers
Committees.
and for committees. Yeah, not so much for
And
boards,
subcommittees.
mostly for committees. So we're just trying to define them and approve what they're doing, make sure they have a charge.
So that should be under oversight committees.
It could be listed twice. This is handbook. You could put it up there too, because it's also,
Policy.
well, handbook could also book here if
Okay.
you want.
Madam Chair, will you take a comment from from the body?
Yes, Jan, go ahead, Jan Lasper.
Yeah, I would just like to chime in. Actually, it's apropos of that topic for one thing, just because I would encourage the continuing thought about connecting with the other town groups. So the planning commission being the one, obviously, that I'm talking from now, but the handbook is a way to remind you, like the revolving talk to a group a month and make that communication. So I totally support that. I quickly would support, and really I'm coming from the planning commission meeting last night, and they approved me bringing these up for your goals, so you know what we're working on as it will feed into you. One of those is a set of zoning regulation updates that relate to being current with new state laws, but also modernizing and streamlining zoning regulations. So you will be getting a packet of changes after we go through public hearing process and feeding it to you. So 4 to 6 months from now, certainly, I would expect the select board to have zoning regs to look at. So that's something to put on your list. And another one that I think is very important that we talked about with you, just touched on it, is capital planning. The planning commission wants to have will be doing an active capital planning exercise within the town planning process. But we had a brief conversation with the select board last year where clearly for this to work, it would need to be a three-way planning commission, select board, and town manager's office activity, most likely as a subcommittee set up officially by the select board with planning commission members and town manager and so forth. So anyway, capital planning as a topic for 2025 coming out of and with the planning commission would be great to have on.
It was AL or OL?
What?
AL. Just making sure.
Thank you, Jan.
All right, thank you.
Just
Marcia? Yeah.
Just say, I'll hand out that memo again, but basically that capital planning lives in I understand where Jan's coming from. He wants to have everybody buy into this. And we're gonna have to approve the monies for it that go to ask people for the budget. But I'll send out the email or I'll put it in the next packet. But basically, that process was looked at last year, and maybe you can help me here.
Well, I think we're brainstorming right now.
Yeah, it's brainstorming, so we're deciding. All right.
Debate, we'll stop.
You could put a little asterisk next to that one.
Next to this one?
Yeah, just to, remember to discuss. Are there other sort of large categories, Matt?
So drawing inspiration from a comment you made last meeting was to look at our ballot, right?
Yes.
And to see how things, like to look for trends.
Yes.
So Lily was super helpful in this. And so I went back, analyzed all our ballots back through 2012.
Oh, nice.
And it was, and so like the thing that jumped out at me was that there was the lowest percentage of yes votes for our town budget this past year than in the past decade. And really it went back all the way to 2013, which was pretty much this. Then it was about the same. 2013 was also a challenging year, I guess. And so, I take that as not necessary. And like, I want to be really clear that I think that Barry and Brennan have done a great job in the budgeting part with the departments and everything like that. And I think there's a lot of things that we don't have control over the budgeting, but there could be ways that we could tweak the presentation of the budgeting and the pacing of like our discussions that might make everybody that might make the public and might make the select board, after observing the select board process last year, feel better about the whole process and be more understanding of the whole process. Because I think that we've made huge strides to doing a really good job on a lot of fronts, but there are ways that we could tweak it so that, like, if we were to attach a goal to it, I would at least, if this whole select board, it would be ideal if we could vote unanimously to approve the budget next year. But like, but that's like a wish list. I would hope that at least everyone, even if they don't approve the budget, feels like they got all of their questions answered sufficiently and had enough time to do so and didn't feel pressured for time. And then, we can agree to disagree. But so that's like a long-winded goal. But like, I feel like we're doing so great and we could add a little bit more structure to it.
That's very good. And thank you for doing that analysis. Put vote analysis under oversight somewhere over there.
Vote analysis.
Brendan, you're not.
I had I was going to
say
say, but I can go last if the board wants to go through.
Okay. I have one of just, and this is really a question that I think Brennan and need some input from Barry and Brennan. So the auditor mentioned that it would be beneficial for our town to have a grants database. And I suppose and I don't know much about that. I think Brennan probably knows a great deal about that. But my question would be, would that be beneficial for the town, both for the audit? And it seemed to me that maybe they didn't want to dig around to find information about our grants because they're in different departments. It might be that they want to see the whole package, that it's more difficult for them to find it. But I don't know if it'd also be a benefit just in management to have a centralized database of what the grants are. And, I suppose it would be when payments are due and how much the town has to pay and so forth. So that's a question. The auditor brought it up and I'd sort of like to explore that with the town manager. Did you want to?
Just a comment on that. So that's kind of a work in progress right now. We've recognized that if we, as a town, if we're going to continue to go after grants and manage grants, need to have a little better,
system,
a foundation to build from where we've kind of created that in a draft kind of electronic form right now. And I think we really need to find like a designated staff person that we can kind of assign to be in charge of that. So it's not so 5 different people doing different things with the grant. So that could either be potentially in the finance office, depending on, our staffing there, potentially in the town manager's office, knowing that we're going to have a new administrative assistant starting tomorrow. So depending on her capacity and aptitude, that might be something that they could take on. So no issue with putting that out on a brainstorming whiteboard, but I can just say it's something we're working on kind of internally, within the town manager, finance director purview.
Okay, so I'm thinking based on what you've said that you think it's a good direction for the town and you'd like to develop in that direction and it might cross over from finance to other.
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure
I'm also thinking it's more of a town manager thing.
Is that like a goal for the town? Or is that
it might be a goal for town manager to develop that. That's all I'm saying is we also have to think about, I think, goals for you, our employee, and also our evaluation form. And that's probably under oversight. That would be TM goals and eval.
I had a question.
Okay.
I think it's probably oversight. I brought it up, I think, at our last meeting. It's not clear to me how we relate to committees in the town. I know that we vet them and I think we oversee them. I think they report to us, but I don't understand how or when or.
I would love to refer to Marcia for that. That's like her
Oh,
a
okay.
passion over there.
And the reason it's coming up is it's partly just because it's coming up, but also because I wonder if they're applying independently for grants. I suspect they are, and how those can be kept track of.
In
through-
making websites and
Yeah,
other things.
So,
Yeah, there's been a lot of independent activity, and that's why
great.
I started looking at this. And I think we've sort of made it clear that people have to go through the town manager for stuff because we might need to get insurance. We've had to do that for certain activities, but we haven't even begun to touch things like websites and what they put on there, and are they making representations that that imply that the town is recommending something, that kind of thing. So I think we still have to get to that, but there is an existing policy. I think it's from 2018. Don't quote me on the date, but I think everybody kind of agrees that it's not what we want,
Okay.
but we need to address it and update it. And so
Yeah,
that's,
I'm not thinking it's anything bad. I'm just
No,
confused
that's in-
about what,
Well, we're confused too.
would that be under
I
oversight?
think so, yeah.
So I would just say
Committee,
darn committees.
this committee.
I'll leave off darn.
This will be, no, they're not darn, they're good. We have a lot of volunteer passion in this town.
Do we have a policy of having the chair of a committee come in and present to us on a regular basis?
Well, that's just part of this scheme that we're trying to work out.
Okay.
Like it really is a work in progress, but we've recognized it as an issue. That's
Okay,
important.
great.
you're in on the ground floor.
Marcia?
Yeah, along the lines of what the auditors talked about, we did some work a year and a half ago where we sat down with treasurer and the finance office and the town manager and basically delineated who does what. And I think, I don't know whether that falls now, I think it does, falls in your bailiwick, right, to follow through with that. But that might be something, I don't know, the auditors said that they were interested in it, they wanted something like that. I think it just needs to be sort of polished and finished.
So how would you define financial roles, something like that? I don't know how you'd write it.
It was a who does what, and there's a document, so I can send you the document. And
How we put it on our, just so we don't forget what it is. Should we describe this?
And what
what did we call it? Well,
I think that if I recall, so that was a one meeting discussion where we had some contention within the Tracy Hall about roles of finance director versus treasurer and town manager, kind of overseeing those. And I think it was a productive discussion. I think we came out of it with kind of, this is a lane that the finance director holds, and this is a lane that maybe the town treasurer would hold, and how do we stay in those lanes, right? And so I don't know how that fits into greater goals at this point, because I think with different personalities, we've had much better communication and much better kind of efficient working together. So I'm at this point kind of satisfied that maybe that's not something we need to revisit at this time.
is it something that you think, I mean, I kind of heard the auditors say they wanted to see something.
I don't remember that.
Okay,
Did they say like a handbook? There was some,
I'll look back because I
Well,
took
I
a note.
think there's policies and procedures of like the
Right.
finance office. And I know Barry has spent a lot of time trying to document.
You're working on that
So
too.
Should
That's
we,
great.
Barry, disappear somehow, we would have.
Barry does not. Oh,
Yeah, the benefit of her knowledge has been kind of transcribed, so we know how we handle different
yes.
things that go on daily, weekly, quarterly, annually for the finance office. She's done a really nice job with that, but I see her hand as well, so maybe she'd like to comment.
Yes. Barry, would you like to comment?
Sure. I think the document you're referring to is a control document that the auditor was speaking of. I do have a copy of that. There's a standard template. The auditor furnished that for me. I have not looked at it yet, with any depth, but it takes the process and procedures of the finance office kind of one step further to say a little bit about what you've all been discussing as to who does what and whose responsibility, and is it to do certain tasks, and where's the accountability and the hierarchy and all of that. So I think once there's someone else in the office besides me, I think that document can become can be incorporated into the training, quite frankly. But that is a piece that's not lost on me, and I will start working on that, incorporating that into the document I've already started.
Thanks, Barry. Brennan?
A different topic. So if we're
Okay.
because I feel somehow we're delving into the weeds of things and
Getting too weedy
with the brainstorming. So here's one. The time engagement of board meetings would be something I would throw out as something you as the board might want to look at. And I say that in the routinely 2.5, 3-hour board meetings twice a month are kind of the norm. And when I've talked to colleagues in other towns, that is extraordinary.
That we spend this much time.
Yes.
Okay.
So we've had a couple of conversations over my tenure about, is there a way to, kind of make things more
efficient,
so that the max you would have would be like a 2-hour board meeting every other week.
Mm-hmm.
If you exceeded the time of that 2 hours, you would actually have to have a motion to continue to get through more of your meeting. And I think that might be helpful in kind of expediting some of the discussion.
Okay.
If I may.
And so maybe you might have some from written suggestions too of what makes the
well, I guess it's really more for this board to decide, like
think about.
If everybody likes to spend 3 hours in a meeting and that's the norm, then that's fine and we'll do that. But is that not appealing to folks, then maybe there is a way to think about for this next year, how could we put time limits on items? That's one way.
We could try to do that.
We said we're going to do brainstorming, but we're only going to do it for half an hour. And after the half an hour, if we haven't gotten through it, we can put it onto the next agenda.
That's a very good point.
And then again, we kind of move things along. Our minute taker doesn't stay here till 10. Just that's a thought I had. And I have a couple others on different topics.
You're here.
I have a thought related to that. Is it an idea to start earlier?
Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe. We had some people who had job clashes, but we don't now.
You have to readopt the policies and procedures.
Right.
We can do that.
Let's just put streamlined meeting and then
somewhere.
I love the idea of starting earlier for
Project.
long distance time.
Other.
This is a big
communication.
This is a bit weedy, but along those lines, maybe one of the faster ways to do it is to just have it sort of standard that when a topic comes up and you open it for conversation, it just goes like
right to the motion.
No, like we could do the motion and then alphabetical, or however you want to do it, but right through, give everybody an opportunity to speak. So it's not, Horseshack raising his hand. I don't know. And then I'm just thinking that might be faster.
We could think of different ways to streamline it. Everyone would appreciate getting out of here. So do we want to just flip this enough to do low hanging fruit in case some of the
On the front page there.
Oh, you want 2 more on the front? Okay.
I just
Go ahead.
On my mind that I didn't mention it. So under Tracy Hall, I'd like to put heating system. Okay, and we have a new board now. I would like to try to figure out if the new board would like to try to proceed quickly.
Take care of that. Yeah.
Because if we don't do it quickly, we're going to be into the next heating cycle, the next winter heating season. It's March, if we could make a decision on what we want to do, whatever that is, and then implement that over the summer months when we don't really have the need for maximum heating. That would be great because we are limping along and
I think that's a high priority.
A lot of money on repairs that could be better spent.
Also, it may not be repairable. We've known that for.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like a new system would alleviate the need to be spending thousands of dollars every month to have technicians come in to fix our system.
Right.
My concern.
Okay, and then, so you have the heating system and what, another one?
Well, the other, just project wise, so we just talked about these FEMA projects, right? So
Mhm.
that's not necessarily what the board's going to be focusing on, but that'll be certainly in my realm and
That you'll be working
Chris's
on,
realm.
yeah.
I'm sure you'll want to be
FEMA under
kind of
projects.
kept apprised.
Yes.
I don't know the last time we had $2 million projects going concurrently inside the town of Norwich, but I think it's rare.
We had 3.1.
Last FEMA.
We had 3.1 million in one storm. It was like just a few hours. But you know, our culverts, it's like Chris, and they're just building in resilience too. So maybe it won't be quite so.
They changed the spec for them after
Yes.
after Irene.
After
And
Irene.
so now they're like 1.5 times bandwidth or something like that. Like
Yes,
it's
and they're broad too.
Pick any house project. There's $1 million project. You have multiple
Oh, geez.
$1 million projects.
Okay, Marcia?
If Brennan has finished his.
Yeah, you have Moore Lane Bridge there. And it's, I think something that we have to bring back out.
Yes, we do.
We never made a decision over the fall
Had a good
and
presentation and didn't decide.
they're there, you know, Stantec is available for us to say, we'd like you to come back with kind of what you learned from your public meeting. And then I'd like us to decide how we're going to handle this summer, because as we know,
That's the
it's
best
gonna warm
season
up.
for it. Yeah,
we're gonna have emulsion and we're gonna have complaints and issues. And I think it's our job to proactively look into that and come up with a plan.
okay. On the low hanging fruit department,
I
go ahead, go ahead.
Biggies. I have two biggies.
Oh, biggies, okay.
Hang on now. Basically, I'm wondering if it's time to look at a review. Is it time to merge with the fire district?
Okay, just put fire district.
Yeah.
We won't explain it, but it's big. It is a big one.
A second.
Project, policy,
Gosh,
oversight,
what would it be?
policy, I
Oh, I
suppose.
guess policy. I mean, it's sort of a negotiation. It's big. You're right, that's big.
And the
And that would
second,
be fire district merger, question mark, you know. And the other biggie?
the other biggie is it time to look at a charter?
Oh, which kind of might relate to that.
It might
So
definitely.
just put charter next to that, the fire district one, a town charter. That might be necessary if both municipalities decided to merge, along with a lot of other details.
Yeah.
So any other biggies? I just kind of like to hear some of the low hanging fruit. Maybe you could flip over and we can leave this and we'll figure out like how another day, because I know everybody's getting tired. So Matt, do you have a few fruits? Those topics that are,
I tried to keep out of the, like I tried to do a higher topic.
oh, you're trying to do the higher, okay.
Yeah, but for the engagement things, I think it was mainly about making sure that people, whether it was very easy for people to link, to get the firsthand information from like our videos or our
Okay.
comments, or even going so far as like Miranda posts the link to our agenda.
Uh-huh.
If you could just paste the text of the agenda into the emails that go out, then that's like one less step that someone has to
Have to
actually
find
take,
it,
right?
yes.
So then they just literally receive the email or see it in the listserv and they can read the agenda. And then if a topic of interest to them is there, they're more likely to engage with us.
Okay,
I had a couple of those kind of things.
great. Marcia?
I'd like to suggest that we put under low hanging fruit, the policies, gift, finance and animal. Because I think we've done work on all of those. You've done work on the animal, right?
Chief Romeo has
Yeah.
a draft ready to go, but I don't know how easy any of those are. I mean, the financial purchasing policy was something that was on this list a year ago.
Right. And you're saying it has a little more urgency to.
We had engagement with the department heads and that came back to, I think Pam was the one who had volunteered to take that on. in the end of the summer, early fall, if my memory serves. And then we got into the budget, and that was it for 3 months. And so it's still there, and there's some work that's been done, but it's not gonna be
That's not gonna
a
be cake.
meeting.
No.
I think it's gonna be a process, and somebody, again, maybe a select board member would probably need to champion that, say, I'm gonna take whatever we had, at the end of the summer. I don't know, maybe Pam did more on it that I didn't know about. And then how do we get that cleaned up enough so it's ready for public discussion at the board level? And then how do we approve it within, a reasonable time?
I think,
I think at some point too, we'll have to decide if some of this could be somewhat delegated.
Yeah.
Like maybe a select board member, and maybe we have a finance committee doesn't really have a quorum, but we have people interested in finance, so pull different people in and, give a charge and warn it and all that. I don't think we're doing that now.
I think,
Yes.
So if we have a large wish list here,
Mhm.
and our other part of the wish list is like shorter meetings,
Mhm.
I think in the past, sometimes, some select boards have said, all right, with you two people go and like research this. And so delegating to smaller groups in the select board to jump into a topic, get the information. It's not a decision-making group. And then they just bring back the information to the whole body during a meeting, present it very quickly, answer questions, and then maybe we can kind of knock off some medium-sized projects, fairly efficiently while keeping shorter regular meetings.
I think, yeah, it makes sense to me. We have to be just real careful. Do we need to warn the sessions that people will go and research things, just to make sure we're staying on the right side of the open meeting law? But I think that would be very productive to have
agreed.
a bunch of those.
I agree with that. I just, without getting into what we've talked about in executive sessions, I think,
There's a way we can do it, I think.
right.
Carefully.
One person, I think, really do get assigned to something and then bring it back.
Okay, well, we can talk about that.
For it.
Hmm?
Yeah, make one person responsible for it. And,
All right, I think,
so smart.
any other urgent or?
Well, I think
or
other
finishing up?
low-hanging fruits, as I brought it up before, is just ensuring that we're compliant everywhere, all the time.
Oh, compliant.
Yeah. You know,
The meeting law.
Other means of compliance too.
There's a lot.
well, like the
in general,
committees,
right?
right? Make sure the committees are filled and they have a quorum.
Yeah, trying to be up to date with that. Okay,
I think that's pretty.
do you think we've done enough? I think we've done enough. We're getting tired.
Good.
Okay,
There is one other thing in the bucket, and maybe it's not up to us or appropriate, but I think recognition in this town.
oh,
Events, people, processes, things that have happened.
nice. Yeah.
Put a positive
Yeah, and
face out there.
this is, I forgot to stick this in, the 250th celebration is coming up, and I would want to delegate that big time, but it could be really cool.
Is that under projects?
Oh, communication, maybe?
Communication.
Yes, the 250th
Okay.
anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, and the governor sent out this document, and there's different ways you could do it. One of them is sort of military participation in the revolution. I don't know if Norwich was here yet, but there's a lot of other school and historical society, a lot of categories. I don't want to go near it, but there might be people in town who would love it, who would just like to have some kind of event in Norwich or through the school that would celebrate that. But I think we have enough to do without doing that, but it's kind of cool, and there might be a group that would love to take that on. So, but yeah, I think we need to set this aside and get through the rest of the meeting, the rest personally. Thank you for doing this, and we'll return to figure out what we're gonna do and how we're gonna do it at a later date. So, thank you for that. Okay, looks like we've got AP warrants to approve. Everybody back on their motion sheet? There, okay,
I'm gonna move.
we have a motion?
Move to approve AP warrant number 1254 in the amount of $937.61 to be paid from the general fund, and AP warrant 1255 in the amount of $100,476.25 to be paid from the general fund.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Ready to vote? I think so. Sorry, Marcia, how do you vote?
Yes.
Sorry, getting tired. Matt?
Yes.
Priscilla?
Yeah.
And Kimo?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay, item 13, correspondence. Oh, let's see, we had correspondence from Pam Smith to define advisory and non-advisory groups in the handbook. We had from Cheryl Lindbergh a memo about a tax warrant that was sent to the town manager. And it seems to me there was a third one. Third one is John Carroll, who attended our meeting and was trying to coach us on leadership and is helping, but the first meeting was frustrating. So, but I think we're doing better, and we're appreciating his advice, and I think we'll be fine. So is there a motion to accept the correspondence?
So moved.
Okay. And is there a second?
Okay.
And Marcia, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Matt?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Item number 14 is to approve the minutes. Shall we wait on the March 5th so people have more of a chance to see them? We're okay with that then. Okay. I know there's a February 26th minutes and the March 5th minutes. And does anyone have corrections? I know there's an error in the March 5th.
I have a correction on the February 26th.
Okay.
It's because I don't want to go down in history as having recommended that we get a new building.
Oh,
That was someone else's recommendation, actually.
okay.
So I'd just like
How
to
does it
change the
read?
word. In exchange between Chemo Griggs and Doug Sasella, considered how our current town hall reflects the current and future needs and aspirations of Norwich,
Okay.
and what might be done to consider this within the current building.
We just strike the whole sentence.
Yeah.
Should we just take it out? So
We could
too
do
much detail. Do
Okay.
you agree to take that out? Okay.
We could just say that Chemo Griggs and Doug had an
No.
exchange.
Yes, had an exchange is a better way.
I have a correction.
Okay, so that's one. Is this to the February 26th? Okay.
Agenda number 1, I always vote no.
Oh, sorry. I knew that. Any others? Okay, on March 5th, I probably wrote more than I said, but it was about the vote, and one of those figures was incorrect. So I don't know which one. They haven't checked.
Yeah, it was, Lily sent in a memo. It was 422 was no.
Yeah.
What article was that?
Item 12.
12.
Don't we agree that if somebody misspeaks, but it's reported accurately, we're not going to correct the minutes because it's the minutes of what happened at the meeting? But we've got Lily's memo.
Oh, I see what you mean. So maybe that one's corrected by her memo.
Right.
Okay, well, for that one, I think yes. Okay, what about? So the February 26th one with chemo and Studio Nexus, we keep that the way we did tonight and just say strike that sentence, or they had an exchange. Simplify.
Change my vote, and that's all.
And change your vote. Okay, and so the no vote was on the, was that on the February? That was on the
February 26th.
Okay. And I think we can just say as amended, and we'll just get this amended. Brennan?
I was just going to say, if the minutes, or I'm sorry, if the warrants are approved and you wanted to start circulating some signatures, that would be
Yes.
timely.
Okay. All right, we're gonna do that, but let's not forget to approve the minutes and then we'll start circulating before we adjourn. That's a good point. Okay, do we have a motion?
I move to approve the minutes for February 26th as amended and March 5th, 2025 as presented.
Okay. And a second?
Second.
And the vote. Marcia?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Salah?
Yes.
Mom?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. And then we have our packet of warrants. We also have Brennan did find a fresh copy of the rules of procedure that was on the website last year. So it will have slightly outdated references to the statutes, but otherwise we've got our framework. So I'm going to sort of maybe start and just send them in sequence. And we'll get that done and then we don't have to come back. It's the date, 12th, right?
Yeah.
By this time in the evening, rain is fried. Okay, let's see. Don't put that in the minutes, Jenny. Okay, and let's make sure we get all of these.
Now, there should be
If there's two
different.
on the HP. Okay. We get the second one. Oops, that might be it, right? The two warrants, great. We'll just,
Minutes will be
Chase it.
upstairs for you at some point.
okay,
Available and.
right, and then we'll sort of chase these ones in the folder. Okay.
Yeah, this goes with these.
Yeah, they just, it's their little travel folder.
I can jump all the way to the end if you want. That way.
All right, is there a motion?
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
And I'll have the vote. Marcia?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.